Alrighty, happy Thursday, health champions. Hopefully you guys are having a great week. I know it's been a fast one for me already. Can't believe it. It's been super busy, but anyway, glad we're having this time to catch up here. So hopefully you guys are ready to get started. Today we're going to be talking about running basics, and the first thing I want to say is don't think that you have to be a runner in order to be get into shape. Uh, but if it's something you're interested in, then this video is for you. And I want to say something here. Basically, anyone can be a runner. You just have to start where you're at, and then go forward. For me, I know this is a huge deal because I played softball for many years. I was the catcher for my team, and unfortunately, my knees from that experience are really, not that great. So when I first started this whole process of running, it wasn't, that awesome because I'm just like, this really hurts. But the more I got into it, now I find that if I don't run, that's when I'm actually more likely to have discomfort in my knees and elsewhere. So my body's become used to it. So this is why I think it's important to talk about, but you just know that if running's not your thing, that's okay, but hopefully some of these tips will help you either if you're going to walk or do some sort of other fitness goal, that this will give you a little bit of guidance on that. So obviously running is a great way to build cardiovascular endurance, and it can also be great for weight loss, stress reliever. That's one of my favorite things about it. And the other big thing is some people like to run by themselves, and it gives them that moment of peace and solitude throughout the day that they might not have. And other people run with other individuals, and so it gives them a chance for social interaction. So it's just finding what really works for you as far as that regard. The nice thing about when you're running, your body releases all these endorphins. So when you finish, you often have what they call the runner's high. You feel really good. And then obviously just overall health improvements. You're going to have improved lung capacity. Your metabolism is going to increase. Your energy will go through the roof. And then you're also decreasing chances of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, osteoporosis, diabetes, obesity, all these other long-term chronic conditions. Big thing here, though, before you start any fitness routine, but especially running, because obviously of the demands it can place on your body, is especially if you've not done any form of actual exercise routine for over a year, make sure you get screened by your doctor first. So that way, they can sort of give you some guidance on maybe where to start, just because you don't want to start off going all at it and then, you end up injured, because then that just, A, you don't want to be injured, B, it's going to set you back in your goals. So, big thing when starting after seeing your doctor is obviously picking gear. And the nice thing about running is you don't need a lot of gear in order to start. You need a good pair of shoes and some socks. And so a couple of things to look for. Some people think that you have to have the most expensive shoes or a specific brand. Big thing here is whatever's comfortable on your feet. So my recommendation is go to a shoe store. Don't go to like one of the box stores that's like a sporting goods store. And the reason for that is at a actual shoe store they have different ways of measuring your feet. They will actually either watch you walk, they might have you run on a treadmill or run outside, and they can sort of see how you move your body, so that way they know, do you land on your heel, do you land on your toes, and do your feet turn inward, do they turn outward, just some basic body mechanics that they're able to watch for, that they might be able to recommend specific shoes. Keep in mind, the bottom line of any shoe, it has to feel comfortable on your feet. If it's not comfortable, you're going to not want to run, because obviously your feet are going to hurt. So that's a big thing there as far as shoes go. They just have to be comfortable. They don't have to be the most expensive. They don't have to be a specific brand. As far as socks go, this is a big one for me because I'm prone to getting blisters. And I hate blisters because obviously they hurt. Obviously, the more time you spend running, the more likely you're going to have blisters. A couple things to look for in socks. You want to make sure that they're thick enough that they're going to provide cushion, but not so thick that it's going to put pressure on your foot and make it so that way it's too tight inside your shoe. You also want to look for things that don't have seams or very minimal seams, because of the fact that that causes spots for rubbing. And then it depends on you as far as if you want no-show socks, if you want them to come just above the back of your heel. Those are my personal favorite, because then it prevents my shoe from rubbing on my Achilles. And so it, once again, comes down to comfort, but the obviously key thing here is you want to try to prevent blisters. So keep that in mind when looking for socks. Similar to shoes, you're probably going to need to try a few pairs before you find one that actually really fits for you. And then the last big thing that you need to have when you are trying to get started in a running program is some sort of timing device. And this can be literally anything. Some people swear by fitness trackers. Other people, have specific watches. Others have used their phone. And that, to me, that's the biggest one, is I like to use my phone because it helps me keep track of pace. Obviously keeps track of distance, and I'm usually listening to something anyway on my phone. So my phone's going to be with me, so it's just an easy way to do it. And the nice thing is I've got a PDF that I prepared that after the video is over, you guys will have access to, but I'm going to show you the tables in the video so that way you can see what I'm talking about. So here, this one is the tracking device one, and it talks about the pros and cons of the GPS watch, an activity tracker, a simple timer, and obviously using your phone. So that's part of the PDF that once we're done with today's video, it will be available on the group page, so that way you'll have access to it. So once you have all your gear, which, as I said, socks, shoes, and some sort of timing device, you're ready to get started. Big thing with running is it's easy to do because you can literally walk out your front door and get started with it. The key thing when you're first starting is setting goals. And this is going to help keep you motivated and make you want to actually go outside and run. So a good way to remember this is the acronym RACE. So R stands for reward. You want to have some sort of reward that you're working towards. Is it that you want to compete in a specific type of competition? Is there a certain goal as far as length, distance-wise? Is there a time? Whatever it is, you have to have a reward, something that you're working towards. Next, you want to make your goal attainable. That's the A. So it has to be within your reach. It can't be so far out of reach that it's, you don't think you're ever going to get there. On the other hand, though, you have to make it challenging, because otherwise, it's not going to provide you any incentive as far as, okay, I'm not really having to do that much. So that's the C, the challenging. And then the E is be explicit. You have to be set out for a specific race, specific time. Whatever it is, you have to have specific points that you're measuring, that you're trying to get towards. So that's where the acronym RACE comes in handy as far as setting goals. To me, I find one of the best ways is, and a lot of people do, is you sign up for a particular race. And, there's different distances, and we're going to cover those here in a little bit. But you sign up for a race, pay for it, put it on your calendar. Because obviously, once you pay for it, you're pretty much committed to wanting to go do it, right? And you want to be able to actually get to that race level, whether it's a 5K, 10K, whatever it is. So this is going to help you keep focused, help you keep you consistent in running, and that's, a big thing with running is consistency, because in order to be able to run, you have to build up over time. So remember, the big thing with any race, no matter the distance, is figuring out, you got to leave enough time to train for it. And I've got tables I'm going to show you on how to do that here in just a little bit. So, and that's part of the PDF, so you'll have access to that. The big thing, as I said, is consistency. This is more important than pace, more important than distance when you're first starting out. You just want to get in that consistent habit of moving your body through running. And so you want to establish a weekly running schedule, because this is going to help you get in that habit. Then the big thing is motivation. Initially, you're going to be all gung-ho, ready to go. You're excited. You want to get out there, and you have no problem going out to run. That's going to go away after a period of time. So you have to figure out what is going to be your motivating factor. As I said, some people, they enjoy the social interaction. So they all join like a running group, and they'll go run with other people. Or just another person. The nice thing about running groups is obviously you've got people at different levels in their running journey. So a lot of people have tips that they're able to help and share. So that's often something that is helpful if you're first starting out. And don't feel that you have to keep up with the people who are further along in their group process, their journey, because you're just starting out. Everybody started somewhere. So remember that. Remember, keep in mind that they are however much further ahead right now. That's not to say you can't get there. It's just take your time, start where you're at, learn from them, and, use that information. A lot of other big things as far as motivating goes is running with music. upbeat, up-tempo music, that has a tendency to get people invigorated and going. So to me, I do like to listen to music. It depends on what my task is for my running period that specific day. If I'm going for a more longer one, I'm going to listen to like podcasts or audiobooks or something like that because I'm keeping my mind engaged. But at the same time, I am still working. I'm still putting in effort, but it's not the same as when I'm trying to do speed or increase specific, resistance or something along that. So that's where, if I'm doing that, that's where I'm going to listen to the upbeat, up-tempo music because that gets me pumped, gets me going. Versus if I'm doing a longer duration, basically an endurance type run, that's where I'll listen to the audiobooks because it's keeps my mind engaged rather than just, the monotonous running. But I'm not running so fast because of the music that I'll get tired too quickly. Big thing with headphones, though, you have to be careful because obviously if you're running outside and you have headphones in, it can be hard to hear if they're turned up too loud, and this can be dangerous, obviously, if you're running on a road or somewhere where there could be conflict between you, cars, you, and bicycles, you and other pedestrians. So just keep that in mind. One of the tip there is obviously you don't have to wear headphones all the time. And the other big thing is I found they have bone conducting headphones, which cost roughly about the same as the now wireless Bluetooth headphones. And the cool thing about them is that they actually sit right here in front of your ear. So they're not blocking your ear. And they actually conduct sound through vibration. So if you put your fingers here and open and close your mouth, you can feel the movement, and that actually is where it's conducting through. And you actually hear incredibly well without blocking your hearing. So this is a great way to be safe while you're out running because then you can hear what's going on around you while still hearing what you're wanting to listen to. And then when you're starting to run, a big thing here is keeping a running journal. A couple reasons for this. Obviously, first is that it helps you track progress, so that way you know, okay, today I did really good, made great progress as far as whatever your goal was, pace, duration, if you're doing hill work when you get to that point. But the other thing is it's a great motivation tool, because some days you're not going to feel like going out for a run. And I mean, we all have it, I have it, that's not, uncommon. So if that's the case, go back to your journal and look at all the stuff that you've accomplished. And that can be just enough of a motivation that you'll be like, all right, I'm going to go do it. And once you get going, within the first couple of minutes, usually you just get into your groove and you're just good to go. It's that initial getting started. So don't let it derail you here. And the other big thing is, and I'm a huge, huge fan of quotes, as you can tell by my wall behind me here. I like to put up all sorts of quotes. And the big thing is that fill your space, whether it's your home, office, social media feed. Like I do, I put them up so I can see them. And with running quotes, things about running, stuff that's uplifting, stuff that's inspiring, all of those things are super important because it reminds you when you see it every day. I mean, on my phone, and I'll go through, periodically and change it, my screensavers are different quotes. Sometimes it's focused on running, sometimes it's focused on health, sometimes it's focused on personal development, whatever it is. The key thing is you want to be able to see them all the time because that's what's going to, it's that subtle drip, 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 drip of, the things that we want to be able to do that actually make those changes permanent, really. So now that we've covered your gear, your goals, and motivation, big next thing is how to get started. Okay. And this is a hard one for a lot of people, especially if you've never been really a runner before. And this is something that is absolutely essential to understand, is when you start, you have to go slow and build upon that. Don't just jump into it, go all out all the time. And you don't even want to go out all the time anyway, even as an experienced runner, because your body just can't handle that, even if you've been training for a while. The idea is running training sessions should be challenging. Obviously, it shouldn't be just easy, otherwise you're not going to see any benefit from it. But it shouldn't be so hard to the point that every time you get down, you're exhausted and you're like, I'm never doing this again, but then you force yourself to do it because you should be. Key way to measure this is that you want to be able to carry on a conversation when you're running. So that means you're at a slow enough pace that you're still able to talk. If you're too fast, you're going to be too short of breath when you're trying to talk. So if that's the case, then you want to be able to slow down just enough so that way you're able to carry on a conversation, but you're still putting in some effort. That lets you know that you're working, but you're not working so hard that you're putting your body into the point of exhaustion. And that's not to say that at some point that you don't alter, obviously, your process, because sometimes you're going to do more speed training, other times it's the endurance training. When you're first starting out, the whole concept is you want to build endurance. So this is where you want to make sure that you're able to carry on a conversation. So the big thing here is also you want to build in rest periods. So this is one way of referring to as the hard easy method. And so this is where you work out for a day. So let's say it's Tuesday and you run. Okay, you run means Wednesday, maybe go for a walk or don't do anything. And mind you, this is when you're first starting out, and as you progress, this is going to change a little bit. But the big thing is you want to make sure that after you have a day where you have, you're really challenging yourself, the next day isn't the same thing. You want to give your body that time to recover. And a great way to remember this is stress on top of rest equals improvement. Stress on top of stress equals breakdown. And so this is where if you've ever noticed that you were training really hard and all of a sudden you're not seeing the progress you want to see, you're not seeing changes that you want to see, you might actually be overdoing it. And obviously you can also be the opposite end of the spectrum, you're not doing enough. But if you've been training really hard and then all of a sudden you don't see results and you continue to be training really hard, that's probably what's going on, is you're overdoing it, you're overtaxing your body's responding because it's like, hey, you're putting me through too much. So, great way to start is the run-walk method. And some people don't swear by it. I'm personally not a huge fan of it. It just doesn't work for me, but I know a lot of people are, and this is the easiest way to get started. So I would recommend starting here, see if it works, and then if it doesn't, then try something else, but this is definitely where I'd recommend starting. And it's the easiest way to build endurance at a manageable intensity without stressing your body too much. And key misconception people have about this is that you run until you get tired and then you walk. You don't want to do that because of the way you're already tired by the time you're walking, so you're not going to be able to get back into the running or have the motivation necessarily to run because you're tired. So you want to walk even when before you're tired. So this is where you're having set periods of where you're running, and then you walk, then you run, and then you walk. And so as you get more comfortable, this is where you're going to start cutting down on the time spent walking and increase the length of the running portion. And even experienced runners use this when they're training for like half marathons or full marathons because of the idea it makes it less grueling on the body and it reduces the risk of injury because it gives the muscles recovery periods during a longer run. Obviously, when you're actually on race day, you're not going to be running and walking. This is where you're slowly building up to this. So this is something that's absolutely crucial. So, and once again, in the PDF, you're going to have access to this, which is the run-walk ratio example. So it gives it for beginners, intermediate, and experienced. And as you can tell, for the beginners, you're going to run for about 10 to 30 seconds, then walk 1 to 2 minutes, and then you repeat this for the duration of your run. So as you can see, it's absolutely essential to, get into this groove of where you run, then you walk. You run, then you walk, and that's the whole idea, is to slowly build your tolerance to where you can run for longer periods of time. Obviously, longer runs, the endurance runs, the duration runs, whatever you want to call it, this is helping you build that endurance that your body needs. It's going to strengthen your heart, your legs, and all of that in the process. They also are a great way to boost fat because with the longer you're running, obviously the more calories you're going to be burning. But the key thing here is you don't want to think you're going to go run for like an hour if the longest you've ever run is only 30 minutes. So you want to gradually increase this time, and the best way to do it is build up, add 5 minutes to your run each week, essentially. So if you're at 30 minutes, spend a week running at 35. And then next week do 40 minutes. And then gradually you're going to see your ability, increase significantly. Once you've gotten to the duration that you want to run for, whether it's an hour, however long, that's when you can start thinking about speed work and hill work and other things to increase the speed you're running during that period of time. And this is where the training starts to get really specific to your individual needs. But obviously we're starting with the beginning, so just remember you want to build up endurance first. And if you focus on that and start off easy, build slowly, you're going to reduce your chances of injury while still seeing all these awesome benefits. Big concept to the next people have questions on is running form. And obviously, running is a natural movement our body does, but that doesn't mean you can't improve certain aspects of this. The key thing here is that when you have a proper running form, if you will, if there is such a thing as proper, that you're going to conserve energy, you're going to obviously improve your pace, be able to run longer distances, and be just more efficient while reducing chances of injury. So some key things to remember is you want to keep your shoulders, and I'm not doing a good job of it sitting here as I look at myself, is back. You want to keep your shoulders back because the minute you round forward, you're pushing down on your lungs, so you make it harder to take a deep breath. So you want to keep your shoulders back, you want to keep your head up, look off into the distance, and you want to swing your arms from your shoulders. Not your elbows, you want to swing from your shoulders. If you're doing it right, you should be a 90-degree angle here, and your hands should almost graze your hips when you're running. And you want to keep everything as relaxed as possible, because if you're tight when you're running, when you get down, all your muscles up top are going to be tight. As far as your hip goes, you want to keep that in a neutral position. You don't want to lean too far forward, lean too far backwards. And it's often when runners get tired, you'll lean either forward or backwards. You want to try to keep your spine and your hips as neutral as possible. And as I said, when you're looking forward, look at the ground about 10 to 20 feet in front of you. Obviously, you can look around. Just be careful you don't trip over something. And so this is just how you get your body in a more natural state so you don't end up with sore muscles just from tension. And it'll make the whole process feel a little better. And don't focus too much on it that it distracts you. Just keep in mind if you feel like you're struggling to take a deep breath, notice how your shoulders are, and all of that. So it's important to just be mindful of that. Other big thing is how your foot lands on the pavement. And this is called your foot strike. Some people are natural heel strikers, so they're going to come down on their heel and then roll their foot forward. Other people land on their toes and push off. Neither one's really bad. It's just everybody's different as far as what they do when they're running. So if you're a toe runner, you can experience tight calves and shin pain just because of all your pressure and all that coming down on your toes. So when you think of your shin, obviously that can hurt. Your calves can hurt. And if you're a heel striker, it can lead to overstriding, meaning that your distance between where your feet land is too far apart, and that means you're going to be using extra energy that you don't need to use. So ideally, according to experts here, the best spot to land is on the midsection of your foot, down here. So you land on the midsection and then roll up on your toes. You're not getting the full heel. You're landing before, somewhere from where your heel is to the middle of your foot. You want to land in that area. And while if you already run that way, that's great. If you want to try running that way to see if it helps, that's great too. Keep in mind the best way to not get injured is try to maintain your natural stride. And there's ways to help with any tight areas as far as calf tightness and all that, as far as stretching and all those things. So we're going to go into that in just a little bit, but I wanted you to just understand where your foot hits the ground can be, as far as, discomfort and pain, it can influence that. So some safety tips are important to keep in mind, especially if you're going to be running outside. If you're running near a road, run against traffic so you can see oncoming traffic. That way you know who you need to. You can get out of the way quickly. Always carry an ID on you. And this is so that way if something happens, for some reason you're unconscious, you have some form of identification. So that way, rescue personnel know who you are. Other big, huge safety concerns. Warming up and cooling down. I cannot stress this enough. That you have to warm up, you have to cool down in order to prevent your body from having all sorts of issues. Warming up lets your body gradually adjust to the exercise. So it's preparing your body for the hard work to come. If you try to just go full on exercise without warming up first and your muscles are cold, they're more likely to have some form of injury. So you want to spend about 5 to 10 minutes before you actually start your routine. If you're running session, either walking, light jogging, something that's going to help get your heart rate up, get your muscles warmed up, get them ready. Some people swear by dynamic stretching. This is where, the static stretching where you're holding something in place, like holding, versus dynamic stretching, you're doing some sort of movement that's going to mimic the exercise you're doing. Whatever it is, you need to do something for about 5 to 10 minutes to get your body ready. Once you're done with your routine, cooling down is absolutely essential as well, because it helps bring your heart rate down slowly. It helps get your muscles so that way they don't go from full-on intense to stopped, because that's not quite as the same as going from, before, where you go all in if you don't warm up. But it's the same thing. It helps give your body that time to cool down. And you want to spend about 5 minutes doing this as well. Some common issues runners run into, and this is one of the ones that I experienced all the time when I first started, with side stitches, where all of a sudden you're running and you feel like there's some vice gripping your side and you can't take a deep breath, and it just hurts. And it can hurt not only in your side, but go all the way up to your shoulder. This often happens for the fact that it's when you're hunched over and you're running, and if you think about it, if you're standing up straight and you hunch over, you're crunching down on this without even realizing. So this is why if you're all of a sudden having side stitches, and it can be hard because it hurts to try to straighten up and take deep breaths, but try to avoid it. You want to try doing like deep belly breaths. So if you're up, you want to get all that movement of your chest so it fully expands and contracts. This is going to help that. If you're having a side stitch and you're in the middle of a run, best thing to do is, if you can't breathe through it, slow your pace. If you need to, walk. Get your breathing back under control. Let the pain go away, and then resume your run. So it's important to keep that in mind. It can happen. I used to experience them all the time. The more you get into the process of running and you get into the habit of breathing and matching your stride and pace and all that, they have a tendency to go away. So take comfort in that. Another big thing that a lot of people deal with are leg cramps, and this can happen for a couple of reasons. Typically, though, they're thinking it's related to the overexcited nerve endings that cause all these muscle twitching to happen, which causes fatigue. And so if that happens, slow your run down to a walk, and then take a minute and actually stretch the area. If it's your calf, stretch your calf. If it's a different part of your leg, stretch that part of your leg. That's going to help get those nerve endings to stop misfiring, and then you can gradually start again as far as your run, walk, run, and get back into your groove. Obviously, big issue people deal with are issues with their feet. As I mentioned before, a big common one is blisters. Some runners take pride in their blisters, calluses, bruises, whatever happens, because, it shows all the effort that they're putting in. Other people have heel pain. Other people have arch pain. So to me, if I can run and not have any discomfort in my feet, that's always the ultimate goal. So obviously we talked about socks and shoes. That's huge. Big thing is stretching routines can help relieve things like plantar fasciitis, which is common for runners. I have that, so I know how uncomfortable that is. And once you get it so it's under control, maintain the stretching routine so it doesn't flare up again. That's my biggest tip on that. Hydration. With hydration, you want to make sure you quench your thirst, but you don't overdo it. It is possible to actually overhydrate. So this doesn't mean, guzzle gallons of water before you run. You want to hydrate before, during, and after your run. Big thing here is if you're thirsty, that's when you need to take a drink. So if your route has like water fountains on it, that's great. If not, you're going to need to carry water with you, so that way you can maintain hydration during your run. Big thing as far as measuring how well hydrated you are is the color of your urine. If your urine is very dark colored, you're not hydrated enough. Your urine should be a light yellow color. And that means you're taking in enough water in order to help your kidneys function well. So you want to make sure you're doing that. Some people have questions about sports drinks. And while sports drinks are good, is because they help you do replace those electrolytes your body needs. You really don't need those unless you're going to be exercising for 90 minutes or longer. Otherwise, the drink of choice is always going to be water. And even when you are taking in sports drinks, they usually contain a lot of sugar. And your body doesn't need this, especially if you're trying to be healthy, right? So you want to slow down, only take in small amounts of sports drinks. But basically, for most people, especially when they're first starting out, water is going to be your best friend. Drink when you're thirsty to keep your urine a nice light color. And then once you get into the point where you're working out for longer periods, over 90 minutes, that's when you might want to consider taking in some form of sports drink. Other big thing people don't really connect with running is food. And this is, obviously what we put into our body is important, but also when we're putting it into our body. So a lot of things that beginner runners do is they don't eat before their run. And obviously the big thing here is if you eat 1 hour before your run, it's going to give you enough energy to boost that during your run. It's giving you that fuel your body needs without upsetting your stomach. Key thing here is if you make a fist, that's how much food you want to eat. So you think almost in terms, it's an appetizer, not a meal, snack. So you want something that's high in carbohydrates, but low in fat, protein, and fiber before you run, because this is going to give your body the fuel it needs to go, because obviously carbohydrates get broken down very easily. Focus on good carbohydrates, candy counts as a carbohydrate, but it probably isn't going to fuel you for that long for a run, right? You want to have something that's going to keep your sugars levels, give you your muscles the nutrients and energy it needs, but not make you feel horrible. If you're going to be running for longer than 90 minutes, you're going to need to replace some of the energy that you're burning. So general rule of thumb here is you want to consume about 100 calories after an hour, and then another 100 calories every 45 minutes after that. Some good sources, because obviously you're going to have to carry these with you, is energy gels and chews, sports bars, and in this case candy can be good because it gives you a little bit of, it's easy to carry, and it gives you that little bit of sugar you need. As far as when you're finished running, you want to eat within about 15 minutes because this helps your body resynthesize muscle glycogen and recover more quickly. And it might help delay the onset of delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS, which is a common condition people who exercise can experience post-exercise. So, especially after a long run, you want to restore your glycogen stores, which are the stored glucose that live in your muscles. So you want to eat some carbs and protein within that 15 to 30 minute window of finishing your run. And the good ratio here is of carbs to protein is 3 carbs to 1.7 of protein. And a great option, and this is one of my favorites because I absolutely love peanut butter, is a traditional peanut butter sandwich. Because obviously you're getting the protein and you're getting the carbs. Another great option is low-fat chocolate milk. And the key here is low-fat, not full-fat, not fat-free, low-fat. So you want to have that. And then so keep in mind that when you're doing your pre- and post-workout snacks, those are not your breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Those are in addition to that. So roughly it should be about 5 meals a day. Keep in mind if you're counting calories overall, you have to take that into consideration. So this is something that's important to factor in when you're starting this process. And a lot of times people don't realize that when they first start running, they often experience weight gain, which is surprising to people because a lot of people are like, okay, I need to lose weight, I'm going to start running. And don't get me wrong, running can help you lose weight. The problem here is, 1 mile of running burns about 100 calories. So when you think of it in that terms, that's when you think of 100 calories as far as when it comes to food and you consume it and you're like, man, I have to run for a mile in order to burn all that off. Then you start to make those, conscious decisions a little bit more. But, and it's not a linear process because obviously when you're running uphill, you're going to burn more calories. If you're running, faster, you might burn more calories. It depends on what you're doing. But you're going to be hungry. And so people have a tendency, they're like, oh, I worked out. So they eat more than they should. And we as human beings are horrible at actually eyeballing portion size. So this is where, if you see this, sometimes in order to help combat it, reduce your workout time. If your normal workout time is 60 minutes, cut it to 30. And this is going to help with a couple factors. One, you're still going to obviously burn calories and get into shape, but you're going to be less hungry, so therefore you might consume less food. And then the other big thing is obviously being mindful of what you're eating, when you're eating it, and the portion size of everything. So here's balanced diet. You want to have a balanced diet to do that. And we're talking about now we can get into the different types of running. Now that we've covered all the other aspects of getting into running, nutrition, water, all that, let's talk about the actual types. And the key thing is there's different types, is usually depending on the surface you're on. Obviously, there's the road, there's concrete, there's track, there's grassy areas, dirt road, all of them have their benefits. And easiest one that most people are on is the road, because obviously they can walk outside and run on that. Others, if you're living in a city, you have concrete because you have concrete sidewalks. Big thing with concrete is it's less forgiving than asphalt, so just be careful because you can get more discomfort in your heels and body parts from just the excessive force that's being returned. Asphalt actually, just believe it or not, has more give, so just keep that in mind when you're running. And obviously road running, this is essentially because you're running either on concrete or on asphalt, is the most common type because people have access to it. And it's also the most convenient because obviously you can get out the door and just go do it, right? Great alternative to this is treadmill running. And this is great obviously if the weather's bad, if it's hot, because obviously you don't want to get overheated. So it's easier than running outdoors typically, and it can be gentler on your joints. The nice thing about treadmill is that you can control the resistance, the incline, the pace, all of that. And so you can sort of simulate running outdoors. And it allows you to vary your workouts if you have access to a treadmill, so that way you can either run on treadmill some of the time, you can run outside some of the time. Big thing is to me, I use the treadmill as a training tool. If I'm trying to increase my pace, increase something specific, and then I'm focusing on it, I can do it on the treadmill because it's under my complete control. And then I translate that to what I'm trying to do outside. So to me, they all have their positives and benefits. One big thing that I absolutely love to do, and this one you have to be mindful of, is trail running. This is where you're outside, you're running, it's not on pavement. It's usually a dirt path, it's whatever it is as far as different terrain. And the key thing here is you got to be careful because there's rocks, there's roots, sometimes you're going through streams, whatever the terrain is, that's what you're going on. I love it though because it gets me out in nature. You just have to be careful of obviously foot placement and being mindful of where you're stepping so that you don't roll an ankle. Track running, and a lot of people associate tracks with high schools, and usually most high schools will have tracks that are open to the public after school hours for people to be able to use. And this is great for shorter distances. It's great for speed work. It's obviously you're going around an oval, so it does get boring. So this is, but it's safer and sometimes more convenient than running on the road. So you have to weigh up your options with this, but definitely keep that in mind. Then the big one, a lot of people compete in, is racing. And this is something, obviously the terrains for this can vary significantly. It can be the road, it can be trail, it can be tracks, it can be whatever it is. It depends on the distance, all that stuff. So the whole idea with racing for the majority of people is not to win the race. It is to set a personal goal and achieve it. Sometimes it's just finishing the race. Sometimes you want to finish it at a certain time. And it might not be enough to win, but that's okay. It's your own personal, that's the best thing about running. It's, your own personal challenge with you that you get to decide what that's going to be. Most commonly, people start with a 5K. And 5K is 3.1 miles. So it's the shortest distance, obviously usually the easiest distance for that reason. So if you're trying to prepare for a 5K, as far as a training schedule goes, and this is just one example, there are plenty, you can do whatever works for you, is that if you're going to need to run for 30 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday, and then for a longer distance on Sundays. So in the PDF that I'm going to have for you guys, it'll be this table right here, and this is the 5K training plan. These distances on here are for the Sunday runs. So it's not the 30-minute runs on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but for your long run on Sundays. So the first week you run a mile, the next week 1.5, the second week 2 miles, third week 2.5, fifth week 3, sixth week 3.5, and then on the seventh week you'd be in the 5K race that you'd want. So when you look at it that way, if you are, obviously starting this running program within 7 weeks, so just shy of 2 months, you could run a 5K. And, it doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be speed demon time. It just means that, you put in the work, run the miles, and you should be able to do that in 7 weeks. So that is, if you're looking for a challenge, and that could be but easy challenge that gets you motivated, get you out the door, that's a great way to do it. Next up is the 10K. 10K is obviously, as it sounds, it's longer than the 5K. It's double the distance, so it's 6.2 miles. And this is the classic race distance. This is, a lot of people, when they're actually doing, once you move beyond the easy 5K and you want to do something a little bit more challenging, this is where you're focused on. So for this, you're going to need to run at least 3 days a week, and this includes the long weekend run, and also you're going to need to do some hill training, because usually, obviously, over 6.2 miles, you're going to be going over some terrain, which includes hills, unless you live in a very flat place. But so once again, same idea. You're going to be running for 30 minutes, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on the long days for Sunday, you would be running very similar as far as getting out, the distances and all that. So this is going to take 10 weeks to get to. So it's just a little bit longer than, the 5K. So as far as planning goes, but it's doable. It's just that you have to, obviously you put in the work. Big thing, obviously, when you're doing any sort of race preparation is not only doing the physical activity component, it's also the eating component. So obviously you got to get your body in shape for that. So once you're done the 10Ks, you theoretically can start with any distance. You just have to need to leave enough time to train for it. So next up is half marathon. And a lot of people are like, okay, half marathon, then you're trying to calculate mileage, right? It's 13.1 miles. And so training for a half marathon isn't much different than training for a full one. Sort of like training for a 10K isn't much different than training for a 5K. It's just a little bit longer. Same thing with half marathon. So you're going to run for 30 minutes every Tuesday, Thursday, and then for longer distance on Sundays. So for the half marathon, here is the training for that. As you can see, month 1, week 1, and then week 2, week 3, week 4, and then month 2, and it breaks it down. So it takes about 17 weeks or 5 months to get to the point where you're ready to run a half marathon. And so key thing is, with any of it, is you just got to put in the time and take your time getting there. So marathon distance is 26.2 miles. Same idea here. So you're running for 30 minutes Tuesday, Thursdays, and then longer distances on Sundays. And so in order to do that, let me get up there we go. Okay. So for marathon training, it takes about 6 months, 6.5 months, and to get to that point. So as you can see, and these are the things for the long runs. So a lot of people do walk-run concepts, so especially when they're first starting half marathon and marathon distances. So just remember, do your own pace. That's okay. Just set your goal for your distance, and then get out there and do it. And you'll feel awesome with the accomplishment once you actually get to it. If you really, really, really are into running, they have ultra marathons, and these usually are 50 miles or more. Some of them are over 100 miles for a single race. And they can take place in various terrains, crossing terrains where you're, start in the desert, go up a mountain, and come back down. And obviously, the heat can play a role. So this requires some very serious training. Obviously, I would not recommend anywhere starting near this point. If that's something you want to do in the future, then once you're ready for it, you can start doing some research on that. And typically, you need some sort of support staff on race day in order to be able to do it, because you need to have access to water and nutrition and other things as you're running. Because obviously, this doesn't take just a few hours. This usually takes somewhere 16 to 24 hours to get through some of these races. Um, so before we wrap up here, I know this has been a little bit longer video. I just felt there was so much information I wanted to share. Um, so a couple things I want to talk about as far as special situations: cold weather running, hot weather running, and cross training. So there's the last three things we're going to cover, and then we'll be done. So bear with me. We're probably will be done in about 5 minutes. So cold weather running. Obviously, if you live in an environment where it's wintertime, it doesn't mean you can't go run in the winter. Key thing is you just have to be prepared for it. So you want to layer your clothing because obviously you want to be warm enough so that way you don't get frostbite, but also you don't want to layer too much so that way you sweat so much then you get cold. So you want to have the thin layer of like synthetic material like polypropylene that's actually near your skin because this is going to wick away sweat. Don't use cotton. Cotton actually holds in moisture and is going to keep you wet. It's going to make you cold. So that's where you want that synthetic material. You need an outer layer that's breathable, something that's either nylon, Gore-Tex, something like that. And this is going to help because it's going to let heat out, but keep the cold from coming in. It needs to have some form of like wind protection, precipitation protection. And if it's really cold out, you might need a middle layer, something that is a polar fleece for added insulation. Because obviously you want the sweat layer to wick away sweat. You want that middle layer to help keep you still insulated because it's that cold. And then you want the outer layer to let that extra heat out, but still keep the cold out. Another big thing, you want to wear a hat. A lot of our body heat is lost through our head, so by wearing a hat, you're going to help keep that in, so that way you prevent the heat loss up there. And then wearing gloves or mittens on your hands are going to keep them from getting frostbitten. And you need usually some form of warmer sock because otherwise your feet are going to be cold. So you have to keep this in mind, obviously, when you're doing shoe size. Big rule of thumb here is you want to dress as if it's 10 to 20 degrees warmer outside than it really is. So this means when you initially start, it's going to feel cooler. But remember, your body's going to warm up as you're moving. And if you layer up too much so you're actually comfortable when you first start, that means you're going to be sweating and overheating when you're later on in your run. So definitely keep that in mind when layering. When it comes to hot weather running, this is sort of the opposite of obviously cold weather running. You want to wear light colored, loose fitting clothing because obviously you want them to breathe. And if it's dark colored clothing, it's going to absorb the sun and it's going to make you hotter. Synthetic fabric again, because this is going to help wick away moisture. And if you want to wear something on your head to block the sun, try like a visor or something like that. Because otherwise, as we talked about with the cool weather, body heat escapes our head. So if you have a hat on, it's going to trap it. And in this hot environments, you don't want that. And then another big thing, if you're hot, you can pour water on yourself. You don't have to just drink it. And you want to aim for your head, your neck, and under your armpits. These are cooling zones on our body, so this helps you cool down. Nice thing about this is not only do you get the instant thing, but you're also going to get the evaporative thing is you're sweating and the water also on your skin gets evaporating into the air that provides cooling. And if, hot humid conditions are not the time to try to set pace records and all this other stuff. If you need to slow down, take a walking break. And, and if it's really hot and brutal, that's when the treadmill comes in super, super handy. There's no sense going outside and killing yourself to run if you have access to a treadmill. Or try to time your runs for either earlier in the morning when it's cooler or later in the evening when it's cooler. So you're not running in the middle of the day when it's hot outside. These are some essential tips because obviously I don't want anyone to have any sort of health problems related to heat or cold. As far as cross training, and many people discount this, is the idea that your running program should include some form of cross training. And it's a good idea because of a couple of reasons. You're working different muscle groups usually when you're cross training. So this is going to help prevent overuse injuries. It's going to mix up your routine so you don't get bored. So some ideal activities that go well with running obviously are cycling, swimming, a thing called deep water running where you're actually running in water because there's extra resistance. Skating, like rollerblading, ice skating, something like that because it works your legs, it just works them in a different way. Or an elliptical. So all of these are good aerobic exercises that work your legs, but this can help you avoid getting burned out and with just running. Strength training is also important because it's going to help prevent injury. You want to do some form of strength training 1 to 2 times a week. And this is something that's so important because of the fact you don't want to focus just on your lower legs, which obviously your legs or at all. You want to focus on your entire body because obviously the more muscle you have, the better your body is at burning fat, the better your body is at providing nutrients, working, all those things. So that's why it's really important to do cross training, because you're giving your body different tools to work with. So just as a quick recap for those who are beginning here, the basic formula for a great training plan is you want to train 3 days a week, as we laid out, and all the different options as far as distances. 30 minutes twice a week, and then a longer run on the weekend when you have more time is key. You want to run or walk those 20 to 30 minutes initially when you're first starting out, the 2 days a week. The longer runs or walks when you're starting out on the weekend is usually somewhere about 40 minutes to an hour. So it's not that much longer than the shorter runs initially. You want to get obviously, as you get better endurance, your pace is going to increase naturally, and that's where you're going to start to be able to do longer distances in the same length of time. And so on the days that you're not running, these are the days either you're going to rest or you're going to be cross-training. And that way you're getting your body in overall better shape to begin with. And when you're first starting, the 2 key things here, remember, you want to run at a conversational pace. You want to be able to still talk. And then the other thing is consider taking walking breaks during the process. That way, don't feel that you need to run all out all the time. And the big thing is this is something that I think is so important that I try to incorporate in my life all the time, is a runner trains 24 hours a day. It's not just the time you're running that you're training. Take a look at how your life is organized, how much sleep you're getting, what you're eating, what you're drinking. So running is a crucial part of your life, but it's not the only part of your life. But everything that we do impacts other areas of our life. And this is where running is something that is so important, but also every other component impacts our running as well. So I know this was a little bit of a longer session today. Hopefully you guys found it valuable, helpful, and if you have questions, I know it was a lot of information, please put them below. I'll make sure I put the PDF in the comment section of the video so that way you guys have access to it. That way if you want to get started and want to print it off and you can start doing, preparing for your first race, awesome. That way, you're ready to go here. But thank you again for joining me. I've got one more day till the weekend. Woo! Can't wait. But until next week, you guys stay healthy, and I'll see you then.